Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Dynasty Dingers podcast. We are a Scout the Stat Line branded podcast. It is Tuesday, June 18th. The year is just kind of flying by. We have a lot to talk about today, and we have another special guest. Today, we're going to have Drew Klein on from the Join the Ranks podcast and the Dynasty Guru brand. But joining me, as always, is Doc. Doc, get on in here.
I'm in here, man. I'm back. I'm back in the closet. This is
Are we back in the closet? I didn't notice.
We're back in. You didn't know? You didn't? You just thought this
I've
is
just
where I
been
hang
too
out?
busy talking to Drew here.
There's two settings. I got this primo indoor smoking closet, and I have the outdoor sunroom, which is more luxurious in my opinion. But this one's good for staying away from screaming baby by the poolside. So we're gonna stay in the closet for now, folks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be walking into that screaming baby. Maybe not poolside, but screaming baby sooner than later. You're about a month here, but we'll cover that in future episodes. Drew, what is going on, my friend? We're meeting for the first time today, and kind of getting to know each other.
Yeah, we are. Things are going well. I live out in Massachusetts. We're getting the first heat wave of the year out here, so everybody's in panic and staying in their air conditioning. But things are going well. I've really enjoyed this podcast, and what I like about it is it's like there's just two guys sitting around talking about baseball. So I am really excited to get this invite and a chat with you guys for a while tonight. So thanks again for bringing me on.
Yeah, Drew, man, I appreciate that.
I'm so excited to talk over not just Matt but also you today. And no, but the Join the Ranks podcast you do with Chris Knock. I listen to it, as much as I can, and that's just again same kind of feel. Two guys just sitting talking baseball. And I like you guys. This is gonna. I've been wanting to say this for a long time, and I have to say it in person and with my voice instead of typing it because you guys have such calm, relaxing voices. I could fall asleep. Now, you see, if I type that out, it seems rude, but you guys, it's very soothing. So it's cool when I'm at the gym, right? So I'm fired up. It's like that kind of brings me. Otherwise, I'm just punching stuff. But yeah, it's great to have you on. How hot was it this week for you in Massachusetts?
High 90s today, and it's going to be that way for 3 days. But it's supposed to break over the weekend, so it's just a mini one. So we'll be all right. But thank you for the compliment. Chris, who I met through the Dynasty Guru, is a great guy, and we have a lot of fun. And it's actually a lot of fun editing it the next morning. We usually tape on a Thursday or Friday night. So Saturday morning, I'll be editing it, and I'll be laughing along at listening to the conversation a second time. Like we just have a good time. So I appreciate that's coming through to the listener as well. Always great to get that feedback. But yeah. All right. So we all love each other. Now let's find something.
Let's get into the actual fun stuff. Yes. All right. So we're gonna kick it off today. We're gonna keep it light, as you said. We're talking baseball here. Yeah. So the first conversation we want to have is regarding two players. And Drew, I'm really excited to get your take on this first player because he's still very young and he's very, very hot in the industry. Still, I think, even though this year he hasn't necessarily replicated the 2023 performance, and that's Roman Anthony. So, I like Roman Anthony as a prospect. I think there's a lot of variables that we need to focus on, but I want your take overall on the profile of Anthony and maybe, what you're forecasting as his future projection.
Yeah, I did not get the hype last year, and I took a look at what he was doing, and I'm looking at, I've got some of his stats pulled up right now. In 23, so last year, he spent the first part of the year in low A, where he had 200 plate appearances. His slash line was 228, 376, 316 with one home run. And then he moved to high A, and then 294, 412, 569. Underneath that was still a 30% K rate. He had 12 home runs. Both stops, he had a ground ball rate over 45%. He had a fly ball to home run rate last year, 37.5. Nobody does that. So he didn't hit the ball very often, but when he did and went in the air, it was going out of the park. This year, he's got the 271, 384, 480 slash line, 6 home runs. People are still kind of raving about him. His ground ball rate's still like 38%. And now the home run to fly ball rate is a more modest 13.6%. I think that's what you can kind of expect. So there's only the 6 home runs right now. I think he's a good ball player. I don't think he's gonna be a top 10 prospect when we're doing rankings next year. And I literally hear people say that, like, "Oh, I can see him in my top 10 next year," and I don't know what it is. I do think there's a lot of Red Sox fans in our industry, with podcasts doing the rankings, and then Red Sox fans are very passionate and good for them. Why not? But I think that gives those prospects a little bit more helium. People talk about the Yankees getting helium. I think the Red Sox get as much or more from that, and some come and some don't pan out. But I I don't see a whole lot of underlying stats for Roman Anthony that say to me, he's gonna be like, say, he's not gonna make my top 10 next year. I don't think. A current player per comp. I don't know if I'm great at this, but I'll give it a shot. Maybe a Teoscar with a few more walks. Not a bad ball player, not somebody you don't like having in your fantasy roster, but I'm not going to Cooperstown either.
Doc, I want to get you in here. Same questions, and you and I both have Anthony aggressively ranked. I think I'm going to have to change at least a little bit of that, but I want you to go ahead and jump in with your take on Anthony.
Yeah, our friendship just ended. All the fun times are over.
Oh, no.
I'm not even a Sox fan, and frankly, I put him as my overall, I think it was 9th or 10th prospect in the offseason. So I'm already there, buddy. I'm already ahead of you. And with non-debuted, I actually have him up to number 5. I wanted to bring him lower. I just felt like maybe I was too aggressive. I look again, and the numbers you said to me, we got to consider how old he's been, right? So he just turned 20 last month. So he was a teenager at AA, and right now he's actually been improving at AA as a 19, just turned 20-year-old. I mean, over the last month, the last 28 days, he's got a 410 batting average, 521 OBP. His 3 home runs, so that's coming together. The steals are still hanging around there too, which is interesting. I wasn't sure if that was going to play. You mentioned the A ball. That was the lowest number. That was no one was really super high on Anthony when he was at low A last year, that 228 batting average, but it was really, he had that 376 OBP. So clearly the approach was still there. The issue, I think, was, too patient. And there's also the issue of the pitches. I had heard the pitches might have been an issue in terms of they're just not good, right? So he got in these habits of like, I don't have to swing at these balls. And then, maybe the average suffers as well, because then you eventually get some good, I don't know. It's just this whole thing. And I'm always excited by these guys with elite approaches combined with, and this is the thing that I didn't hear you mention, was just how hard he's hitting the ball. He hits the ball incredibly hard. It's hard to find those metrics out there, but I've seen it posted around that, he's hitting balls in the triple digits with some fairly regularly, more than Marcelo Mayer. He's got that sweet swing. Yeah. So I'm really, I don't know about all in, but I'm as close as you can get, I guess. I think he's going to be a star. I mean, and last year we should say as a 19-year-old, which is appropriate for high A, 12 home runs in 54 games. I mean, that's power. So he can do it. I'll give you, and here, just to level things out, I'll give you one knock. That's not a reference to Chris, but
I was just gonna say that's a nice little pun you just threw out there, Doc.
Yeah. But the knock on him right now, I believe, is that he's hitting a lot the opposite and central and the center of the field, which as a lefty is not great because there's that big monster there, right? So it's going to be more doubles maybe. If he can learn to pull it, which he's very young, or if you can just try to pull it a little bit more, get into short there at Fenway in the right field, that would be fantastic. I have a hard time with comps too. I believe Drew might have said that off air, but I have a tough time with comps. I'm not saying him. I'm saying the light version of Bryce Harper is the peak outcome, the light version. So he's a freak. He's a generational. I don't think Roman Anthony I don't think he is generational, but I think you're looking at a guy who's 20 plus home runs. I think he could get you 20 steals. I see a very strong approach, and I see a strong batting average. I just see like a completely well-rounded player who seems to hold his own in the outfield. There's a lot to love for Roman Anthony, from where I can stand.
Yeah, I can see where both of you are coming from. When I broke down Anthony today, I saw two different stories, right? Drew, I saw what you're saying, and Doc, I have seen and heard, I think, your side, which is why I've been so aggressive. The problem is we don't have the exit velo that everybody's raving about with Anthony on a consistent basis yet. And I think most of us in the industry really value that kind of data. And the fly ball to home run rate is huge. Doc, you brought up a stat that I was really intrigued with, which was his pull to opposite field overall projections and actual outcomes. And there was something I really noticed when I pulled up his numbers. And that was exactly what you said, which was how often is he pulling the ball? That was something that has been brought up on other shows this year, that Anthony hasn't been pulling the ball very efficiently this year. Well, that number is starting to come back to his highest production season, which was last year in high A. High A, he was 38.8% pull. This year, he's now at 36.3% pull. The opposite is still at 37.1 this year in comparison to that high A 32.6%. I think those numbers are going to be really important to watch because honestly, I don't mind if he's hitting to left field. If he's going to be more of a doubles hitter in Boston, I'm okay with that. If he's going to be able to get a few more home runs because of the monster, that's good. That profile is going to be really important though. And then Drew, the strikeout rate is huge. Right? You talked about 30% at high A last year. That was a big concern. It was 30.6 this year. It's 26.1. He is still young, Doc. I agree with that. I think that's the hardest thing with these guys to gauge is the youth. When you look at Anthony and you look at Dylan Cruz, similar lines, both at Double A. One spent 3 years in college, one didn't. But Drew, I want to get your opinion because you brought this up, and I thought it was a fantastic comment. Something that me and you share, and we talked about off recording today, which is the influence in the Boston prospectors in the prospect industry and the dynasty industry. They've been doing it for a number of years. They're very passionate. They've hit on a number of guys that have come up and provided value. And I think that's where the respect is. But I think when we talk about group culture, as well as like getting caught in group think with prospects, you talked about that with Anthony. I feel like I fell into that trap with Roman Anthony. And I wanted to just see if you think as Mickey Romero starts to grow, as Cutter Coffee starts to grow, as Lugo, we're starting to see him really develop, and Campbell this season really develop. Do you think those names as well will get overly aggressive with their rankings?
That's a really good question. I think not to an extreme. I think there'll be a little boost for them. I think that Cutter Coffee is really hot right now. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but if people kind of latch onto that now, I think what happens is they say, okay, look how well he's doing now, and it just lasts a little bit longer. And I want to be careful. Like I'm not faulting the prospectors as much, the people putting it out, but then those are the tweets or the articles that get retweeted and quoted, and the kind of the momentum builds around them. So there's some great people that they work harder at this than I do, and I'm by no means am I trying to call them homers or anything, but I do think then the momentum builds up around those opinions as well. But I think they get looked at a little bit harder. I think there's that little bit of hope casting as well with some of them. But I want to be careful too, because I want to be fair with what I put out, that I'm not knocking them down because of that either. So I kind of want to make sure everybody gets their due, and like I'll never say a bad thing about Jaron Duran. I think he's amazing. And I'm kind of rambling here, but
I get where
my
you're
short
coming
answer,
from,
Matt,
though.
is yeah.
Rambling is my job here, Drew. Once again, first you come after Anthony, now you're trying to. He wants my job. This is. I'm
We
out
really
here.
need to protect Doc's, overall foothold and whatever he's doing here. So if he wants to take the
Whatever it
rambling,
is.
Well, Doc, you're actually my doppelganger, right? We grew up near each other, and we both have connection to Indiana, and we just live parallel lives 40 years apart.
It's very odd. Yeah, no, and that's the interesting thing, right? You said you had roots in Canada too, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah, that's what you said, across from Detroit. And just it's interesting. I remember we had this little discussion in the Discord DMs, and there was a lot of weird similarities. I grew up Canada. Now I'm just like the most like I'm embracing the Indiana culture, and if you don't know what that is, boy, you better start eating some corn. And
is it your Bobby Witt shirt, or is it the Evan Carter shirt that also has like the very American prideful backdrop? Which one is that?
They're both kind of like that, but Bobby Witt is that Team USA Bobby Witt.
Okay.
Man,
Yes.
He's so good. Anyway, let's not talk about Bobby Witt. Otherwise, that will be the rest of the show.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna get you
Matt.
back on track. This was my fault. As we're talking about t-shirts here, this is Drew. This is the show. We get off topic often and never make it through our outline. We gotta love it. Circling back around, we have two promotions that I wanted to really quickly touch on and get both of your opinion on, because I think these are two players that could have a wide range of outcomes. Toronto Blue Jays today promoted Orelvis Martinez finally to get his shot with the Bo Bichette injury. And then Ben Rice for the Yankees also staying in the AL East, getting the shot for the Yankees now that Rizzo is going to be out for an extended period of time. I am guessing that means Ben Rice will be getting a shot at first base. So Drew, let's start with you with both of these prospects. Are you excited for them to get the promotion? And do you have high expectations for either?
I have high expectations for Ben Rice. He's somebody who I really like. I was, digging deep this offseason and was looking at his statistics. I think he's really got something going for him. He's got really good ball to bat skills and just love what I see there. And I hope that him coming up means that Augustin Ramirez is promoted to AAA behind him. And I think, what I foresee for the Yankees is both of them getting a lot of catching. Rice probably a little bit more at first base, but enough catching, and so it doesn't have to be one or the other. With their talents, what I've heard and read is that Ramirez is a better receiver and catcher, but Rice isn't bad. He's not Gary Sanchez back there. So I think that I'm really excited to see what Rice can do. I love the swing. I love what he's going to do in that ballpark. If he can kind of pull that ball in the right field. Orelvis Martinez, everybody at the Dynasty Guru is laughing right now. I was the low man on him. And there's some people in there who are very, very high on him. And so we had some fun debates during the ranking season. And again, I don't dislike Orelvis Martinez, and he's Matt Chapman is who he is. And this came to me a couple years ago. I was writing an article about Matt Chapman, and I was trying to think about it. He was slumping 2 years ago, and I was looking in the farm system to see who'd be pushing him. And there was Orelvis, who was playing third base at the time. And I thought, okay, let me look at him. I thought, they're the same guy. High strikeouts, high power. You get the good with the bad. So I'm excited to see Orelvis launch some bombs, but I'm really afraid it's going to be at a 222 batting average too.
Yeah, Doc, I really like what Drew just said, and I have my same concerns. I'm not as familiar with Ben Rice. I'm excited though. It did not work out for Wells the way I think some thought in the industry. He's still young, but they do have those three players, kind of all jockeying and positioning for opportunity in New York behind the dish to ultimately become the starting catcher. What are your thoughts on Ben Rice and Martinez as well?
Well, you kind of got on top of it, but I wouldn't write the obituary on Austin Wells just yet. I think he's getting on base an okay clip. That's kind of that was his calling card in the minors. Pops an occasional dinger. He's not really playing that much. Jose Trevino is just holding on to that job. It shows you how important, a guy you can call a game, and especially in today's evolving MLB of the stolen bases returning, you got to have a catcher who can throw a guy out. And so, it's going to be an interesting situation. I don't really know much about Ben Rice's defense. I haven't heard great things, and he's starting at first base tonight, which is really cool. So that shows he's not just one of those guys that they're bringing up to sit on to have rot on the bench. This is maybe they feel it from the fans. Yankee Twitter is so funny. It is pretty rabid. Those East Coasters, man, they go all out. And so Ben Rice, I was never super high on him because of his age. He's a 25-year-old prospect, and he's been old for every level. Today, I saw some people pointing out, well, he had some of his development compromised from all the COVID. He was delayed for a year or two and whatever. I was never out on him, but I just didn't take a huge interest with him. That said, I am in now. He's the numbers he's been putting up in the minors. You can't ignore them. Clearly has some serious pop, some fun ratios. And man, if you can just be like an above average bat in that Yankees lineup, whoo, which way does he bat? I got him pulled up here. I think he's a lefty. Oh, short punch is going. Yeah. I don't know what that is. That New York. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Ben Rice. I guess Drew and me we're buds again. We have the same opinion, basically. I remember you said that, Drew, about the Matt Chapman comp. That's a great comp, and I just don't see it with Orelvis Martinez. He's had some real trouble with his. Here's the deal. So his ratios, if he transferred directly from AAA to MLB, okay, 260, 330, whatever. But that's not usually what happens. Usually there's a drop off, and I'd rather get a guy with a little bit less power with better ratios. You know, I don't get it. It's not like Toronto's a hitter's park or anything like that. I don't know how they're going to handle their prospects. I was from what I'm aware, they didn't really let Barger, didn't give him a lot of playing time. So we'll see what happens, man. But overall, I think if you can sell high on Orelvis's great name, Orelvis, if you can sell high on that hype, that would be my recommendation. Hey, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, the Martinez one is interesting, right? I think it's funny you brought up Matt Chapman, Drew, because we think often about why pay the guy if you have a prospect that can do a similar job. Now, Chapman Platinum Gold Glove for us in fantasy doesn't so much matter outside of playing time, as we all know. But Martinez 24% K rate in the minors this year has gotten better with that, but it's still 24% in the minors, and we've seen that with a number of our favorite prospects getting called up. That number traditionally goes up at the major league level, and anything above 28% is a bit risky. And I'm going to kind of jump around on our outline because I think this is the perfect transition to Heliot Ramos here, who has just been absolutely on fire in the past 2 weeks. It's currently at 9 home runs, but a 29% strikeout rate. And Drew, this is a very exciting young player that had a couple shots before finally producing. What are your thoughts on what he's doing and can do as his career continues?
I laugh because I was writing notes for he's the duck-billed platypus because that should not exist in nature. Everything we know about evolution, the platypus should not exist. The mammal that lays eggs, it's got the web feet and the duck bill and the tail, the beaver's tail. He swings at nothing. He makes no contact. His swing rates are like just crazy. It's like 35% out of the zone, and only like I forget what it was. Like he only swings like 70% in the zone, which is incredibly low. And then his contact rate in the zone is 79%. That's so low. His OCON outside the zone is 40%, but he only swings at 24% outside. So that kind of helps. That shouldn't be producing the stats he's producing right now. So it's like a lot of fun to watch. I think it's a blip. I don't want it to be. He was drafted 2017. That's about when I started playing Dynasty. I was playing fantasy long before that. So he's one of the first prospects I remember being signed, and I probably had him on a few rosters at the time. And so I love that he's there now, and I love that he's having this moment. But I think it's a moment. I think the swing rates, I think the contact rates are going to catch up with him. But if you have him, ride him, and when he gets cold, kind of see what's behind him. But it is a lot of fun to watch right now.
Doc, what are your thoughts on Ramos and his current hot stretch?
He's a funny guy, like you said. I think the platypus, it does build a case for God's creation, because it just shows that only a divine creator could have that kind of sense of humor to create such a weird animal. It's the Indiana talking. Heliot Ramos. I miss this guy. So for a few reasons, I missed this guy. And all but one league is our TDG redraft league. You're in that, right, Drew?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm freaking killing it. That's like my best league.
I'm right behind you.
Oh yeah. Okay. What's your team name?
Diamond Dogs.
Okay, yeah, I think anyway. The listeners love hearing about these things.
They do.
Yeah, they care. They're so invested in our personalized leagues, aren't they?
Yeah, it's so tricky. Everyone should have their name. Mine's Doc's Smoke Wagons. You know it's Doc. Just come on, everyone. Tell me who you are. I don't have to figure it out. Click the managers button. I spent so much of my fab on Ramos, so I hope you're wrong. The thing is, I just had this huge hole in the outfield, and outfield in general in fantasies ain't what it used to be, especially if you're playing 4 or 5 outfielder slots. I had to go for it. And frankly, yeah, in other leagues, it seems like he's actually been on prospect lists over the years. I am new relatively speaking, to the deep prospect grind. So I didn't really have that background. And also I have this thing, I must be the Pablo Sandoval effect. He kind of is the same-ish build, not as thick, but he's got that beard, Hispanic dude with the, yeah, he kind of looks like a big old bear. And he I never was a Pablo Sandoval guy. So I'm like, okay, he's not going to be. Then I look at his Savant ratings and I'm like, my goodness, okay, that's more than Pablo Sandoval. Yeah, he smacks the daylights out of balls, man. And he did it last year when they brought him up too. Even though he didn't really do that well in a small sample size. So it seems like he does hit the ball really hard. I think that, yeah, if there's any worry for the future, it's that the K's and his approach don't seem to be ideal. I mean, it's kind of like an ideal outcome for a guy like Orelvis Martinez, funny enough. But yeah, we'll see. Also, I don't like him hitting in San Francisco all the time in a pitcher's park. But hey, baby, pretty much anyone who had him, who got him for free or or overpaid a bunch in Fab. So unless you're me and you spent $300 in Fab, you're good. You only have profits here. So we'll see what happens. But I think it really could be kind of either way. Maybe meet in the middle.
Yeah, we talk about Ellie De La Cruz a lot over the last year and a half, talking about can he change his K rate, can he not? The exit velos are nice. Obviously, the tools are glaring; they're in your face. I think we have to hope that development is there for every player. Ramos still being young, had his shot before, as we kind of talked about, was more of a balanced player. The power is really showing now. The EVs are showing. I think, we have to hope that he can maybe be a top 40 outfielder, bring that K rate down, be a starting valuable player. But I do think it's very early and it's very hard to gauge right now. Just wanted to throw these two numbers at both of you. Martinez currently, as he's now promoted, leaves AAA with a 90-mile-per-hour exit velo. Ben Rice, interestingly enough, 91.4. I think Ben Rice's is really, really exciting because that's just a number that it shows that his capability of power with that short fence in right, as you both talked about. So I think two numbers to keep an eye on. We have above average exit velos, even higher than what Wyatt Langford was doing last year. So hopefully they can produce a little bit better than one of the highly touted prospects. Next on the list is another player you both really, really like. So I don't think there'll be any disagreement here. And Hayden Birdsong is really performing well this year, coming off of 2023, which was also very impressive. So Drew, I want your thoughts in regards to what Birdsong is doing and maybe who is the best pitching prospect out of Birdsong, Black, and Wisenhunt in the Giants organization.
Ooh, I love Hayden Birdsong, and I know Doc does too. I'm working on an article for him just to do a kind of a profile on the TDG site, and I found an article that Andrew Bagley wrote for the Athletic a while ago, a year or so ago. And it tells a story about Birdsong got cut from his AAU senior team by his own dad when he was 14 years old. He was only like 5'11" at the time, and now he's 6'4". And the person who took it hard, it was his mom, because mom had to drive him to all his junior games since dad was coaching the senior team. But it's that K rate. He's got a huge K rate. It's always over 30% at all the different levels. The walk rate hovers around 10%. Just got promoted to AAA. He also keeps the ball in the park. He's only given up 11 home runs in his whole minor league career. 5 of those were this year in the PCL, the Sacramento, where you see a few more home runs in the PCL, and I don't have all the data. So, and I don't want to say it's all just because of that, but he keeps the ground ball rate around 40%. So with what he throws, it's just nasty stuff. He's got a really good selection. That's an awesome question in terms of who's got the higher upside. Wisenhunt has the credentials, and I know he's got a really great changeup and ranked higher. And I don't want to be too out there, but I think Birdsong's got the fastball and the slider. He's got a really, really highly graded fastball. So even though Wisenhunt's rated higher right now, I still think that Birdsong I might put him just a little bit ahead of Wisenhunt right now. And Black's very good too, but I just think he's third of the 3. But boy, I'd love to be a Giants fan, have those 3 guys coming up, because that's going to bode well for that team if they stay together.
Yeah, absolutely. Doc, what do you thought? What are your thoughts? Are you in agreement here?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't think too much about Mason Black. I mean, he's fine. I guess he's just honestly he's been living in these two other guys' shadow. It's not fair. He's had some pretty solid numbers throughout his minor league career. But I did take a look. He just seems like he might have a slight homer problem. I don't know. We'll see. He is still so young in his major league experience. I think for me, it's actually kind of easy at this point, and it's flipped because I was really all in with Mr. Wizenhunt, and it's flipped. I just it's not just because of his PCL results because those are rough though. They're still over a 5 ERA is not good, but he's only got 2 pitches really, and it's as honestly they were just. Drew Klein and Chris Knock over at the Join the Rank podcast. I was going to keep plugging y'all.
Thanks, man.
I think it was Chris. He was highlighting that he goes fastball changeup. Those are his 2 pitches pretty much. And it seems like it's not really going to cut it. He needs to work something else in there.
Like a cutter, huh?
I don't know, man.
I'm just trying to give you. I'm trying to give you another pun here, you know?
Whatever works. So hey, it's you would think, but I mean, you would think they would be working with him on that and noticing if there was a major issue. So you never know. I'm still high on it. I'm not giving up on him by any means. But Birdsong, I love that story. I mean, that's a hardcore dad, man. I mean Birdsong must have sucked because like even if he was like kind of good, I'm sure he'd keep him, but he must have been pretty bad. So I just love that because it goes into what I saw from last year to this year with Birdsong. I love some of these intangibles. We can have the data. There's so many of us geeks out there. I'm not even I'm a geek, but there's some mega geeks out there. They have all the numbers. They can crunch them all. Sometimes I feel like the edge can be a story like that. And also observing a trend like last year, killing high A, showing that promise by lowering his walks, goes up to AA struggles. He was starting to creep up some height on the building up a hype train. And then the walks came back at AA and he started getting rocked a little bit. Mr. Birdsong did. And people kind of forgot about him. This year, he comes back, same level, AA, and crushes it at 2.05 ERA. I mean, ERA is on everything, but it's something. And his K rate, I believe his K rate went up and his walk rate went down. It's like, oh yeah, now we're living. And so there's so much to like with Birdsong. Starter's pitch mix. He's got that fastball. He's got 3 pitches at least. I know he works with there. I want to say curveball or changeup. I think is actually his next best pitch. I could be wrong. But I just 6'4" now, as Drew put it. I listened to this podcast yesterday, so it's so easy to remember. But I love it. Tall drink of water, 6'4", and he has like a Jackson. He could be Jackson Holliday's cousin. They kind of look the same. They're in the face on their pictures on Baseball Reference, and so and I just love that he'll be in a pitcher's park. I like his just one last sentence on this crazy ramble, especially since we both agreed on it. But Birdsong did put up 7 strikeouts in 4 innings in his first appearance in the PCL. So get him now. I still don't think the hype has caught the hype has caught up to his actual value. This is a guy who could get a cup of coffee in September. He might be ahead of Wiz now in the pecking order of call-ups.
Yeah, and Wizenhunt. Go ahead, Drew.
I'm sorry, Matt. I was going to say real quick about Birdsong is he's less than 10% owned on Fantrax. Like
that's incredible.
I don't get it. Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense. I kind of got it over the off season because of the troubles at AA. How can you not pay attention? How can you not like it?
Yeah, troubles, but and like I'm at fault for this. I remember looking at Birdsong this off season when I was doing rankings, and I just said, kind of again the AA things kind of bothered me, but it's like you look at the overall numbers: 100 innings, 140 strikeouts. Walks sure were a little bit of a concern, but the home runs, Drew, you brought that up, and that's what really highlighted for me was only 6 home runs in those 100 innings last year. Doing a pretty good job this year. Wizenhunt has been the one that I think has been really bitten by the PCL so far. 8 home runs on the year, but he's not helping himself. He's walking. And this was a comment that I brought up last week, Drew, and I wanted to ask because I just don't know, and I haven't had the time to do my research. Are we under the impression that all AAA teams and leagues are operating with the robo umps? Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer.
I'm pretty sure they are.
I think they are.
I thought so. Yeah.
And Yeah, we'll say tentatively agree here. I bring it up because maybe Wizenhunt's also dealing with walk issues because of that, but it doesn't help when you're in the PCL, you're walking guys and you're giving up home runs. But Doc, I think we're all in agreement here. Birdsong probably is a little bit of a safer bet, has the strikeout pedigree that we're looking for from Wizenhunt, but doesn't necessarily have to develop another piece for that pitch mix. And I think we're at the point where Birdsong has at least passed for those of us in the industry paying attention. And I think by end of year, he will have fully passed throughout the industry. Definitely will be interesting to keep our eyes on. Our next player is a major league player. Andrew, this was a guy that you had kind of tossed our way to talk about. And I think it's even more interesting today because Lawler is hurt yet again. Jordan Lawler, I want to say it's a grade 1 hamstring strain, 4 to 6 weeks. He will be out. He's only been back for a couple of weeks now. The player that I am alluding to, us actually talking about, is Blaze Alexander for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I have here in our notes, is he a placeholder for Lawler and De Los Santos? Well, we'll see if Lawler can stay healthy. But Drew, Alexander's had a nice, quiet season, but there are two very big prospects behind him. Do you think Alexander's a placeholder and a future utility guy, or do you think he can hold a job?
I don't know. He keeps surprising me. Like I didn't see him in any rankings prior to the season, and he just got called up when Perdomo went down, or been filling in Perdomo. I don't know if he was called up a little bit before that or not, but the 279, 342 OBP, 397 slug. He's not a power hitter, but he's got the OBP. He's steady. I have him rostered a few places that have either a middle infielder position or a particular deep league. And then when Perdomo came back, I was ready to bench him. I thought they're going to put him down, and they moved him over to third and benched Eugenio Suarez. And so I thought they must like what they have there. And then you're right, they got Davison De Los Santos and Andre Chaparro sitting there in AAA, just hitting the cover off the ball. So I don't know, and I don't know who's on the 40-man roster and who's Rule 5 eligible, and I let Chris follow all that stuff for our cast. So there may be contract stuff going on. I think long-term, I think he's a utility guy. I think he's the kind of player who, in a deeper league, you've got him and you're looking at matchups, especially if you've got a daily rosters and you see these in there, you may want to plug him in there. I don't really have a good comp for him. I don't know who that compares to, but he's just not going to hurt you with anything. But in AAA last year, he had a 408 OBP. He was 291, 408, 457. So there's something there. It's not a fluky season by any means, but I don't think he's going to block those guys forever. And I didn't know Lawler got hurt today. Was it that today? That today's news you were saying there, Matt?
It was this week.
Oh, this week. Okay.
He's banged up again. It's so crazy because
I missed it. Yeah.
he had, it's okay. There's so many players once the season gets going. It's so easy to miss some things.
Yeah.
And I will say that this guy, he came up as, what was he, 20 years old? He was very young, came up, didn't do the best. And so I was very interested as a guy who wasn't even the highest guy on Lawler. I'm just respecting his talent in this game. I'm like, well, of course we're going to give him another chance and he'll get it. And I'm very excited for him to see what happens. And he just keeps getting hurt. And I don't know if he had a history of that before either. I think it's all just happening at the worst time. So we'll find out what his resilience factors are like, huh?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know that we've talked about this on this show, Doc, but this is a football related concept, but I think it will eventually translate to baseball, and I'm fascinated by it. The University of Wisconsin brought in a couple of the Packers last year that were dealing with hamstring injuries consistently, and they did body metric testing on them, which is something I have been waiting for years to really enter into sports. And they found one of the players had a 20% stronger hamstring than his other. And coinciding with the fact that his hamstring that was 20% weaker was always the one that was getting hurt. And so they basically concluded that, well, if you can find a way to balance your body out better, you won't be compensating and pulling and straining muscles, which is very logical. It's very simple, but how do you actually do the body testing, I think, has been the issue. I'm going to be fascinated when it comes to baseball because I think some of the hamstring injuries that we've seen really hamper careers, even from some of the younger guys. Like a hamstring is one of those things, like a shoulder for me. If you're a young kid, if I see it twice at the minor league level, I start to get really, really concerned because I'm not sure that this might not follow you. We saw it with Giancarlo Stanton.
Sorry, go. You want to say some more?
No. I want your opinion on it. If you think this body metrics, if this is something that is going to really help us in fantasy be able to identify players down the road, because it's not today, but down the road that we can trust more.
Whatever it takes, baby. Because it's funny you said about football. I used to be a diehard. I don't really follow the NFL too much these days, but Clay Matthews, I was a diehard Packers fan. Funny enough, keeping it in Wisconsin. And Clay Matthews, he'd always had these hamstring injuries, the worst times, and it's too bad they didn't have it back then. And these days, a guy who I'm very fond of, Lars Nootbaar. I think he could be, frankly, a star, maybe, if he could just give us a healthy season. And so, yeah, whatever these head shaking his head. Okay, friendship ruined again.
No. I agree with you.
You're frustrated. You're frustrated.
The healthy season isn't going to come
because he's becoming that guy. No, whatever these sports metrics are, send the whole Nootbaar, you pay them. You pay them a lot of money, and out of your pocket. Forget the team. You just go and get the best. Just come on, baby. We need to see Nootbaar. And yeah, man. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything about what you're talking about, but it sounds good to me.
Well, the NFL is giving the university a $5 million grant this year to do a more in-depth study on what I just described. And again, I am not a doctor with the vocabulary I just used, regarding just describing the situation. But I do think it's in line with technology. And we started to see this 6-7 years ago with throwing programs being able to identify the joints and the leverage that is put on the arm, kind of forecasting injury and that ultimately changing mechanics. But I do think technology will continue to change. But it's kind of steering us back on course here. There was a name that you brought up, Drew, De Los Santos, who has been an exciting prospect this year. He was picked up in the Rule 5 and then returned, but he's really changed his profile this year. And I wanted to kind of get your gauge as to what you think future projections could be. And then, Doc, I'll let you kind of jump in as well.
He's a tough one for me. The positive, I think he's going to be a very, very good player. And I think if you look at what Alec Boehm is doing this year, I think that's the kind of player De Los Santos can be. I think, good average, good on base, and better than average power to go along with it. I don't see a lot of stolen bases in his profile. I don't think he'll be like a 5-tool player, but I think he's going to cover a lot of categories. And again, I think we're seeing peak Alec Boehm right now, but I don't know if that'll be peak or average for De Los Santos, but that's the closest I could come up with right now. What do you guys think?
Doc, what do you got?
Well, you asked us for comps, and I saw that bomb comp. I don't know, man. I mean that literally. I don't know this time. He's such a weird guy. You look at De Los Santos's history. He's still so young, right? That's the other factor. But he had so many strikeouts. But then he was up at like AA as a 19-year-old. He was, I think it was like 25 to 125 was his walk to strikeout ratio, roughly speaking, last year. I'm like, that's not my guy, And I will say that often when you see that kind of approach at any professional level, it's always possible it can creep back in. That said, he's doing not the opposite, but he's doing enough right now. Where he's just smashing endless. It's kind of like Ben Rice. I was just like, yeah, he's too old, But hey, whoa, he's smashing bombs. He's putting up numbers. Okay, I can't ignore him anymore. De Los Santos, I didn't want to believe, and now I'm like, oh well, you're forcing me to some extent because he's got like an over 300 batting average somehow, and the OBP's looking great, and of course the bombs are there. So yeah, he's a guy, I guess. A couple of things I'm weirded out other than that. The other thing I would say is, what's up with the organizational hot potato? Why did nobody believe in him? It's another weird thing, right? And so I guess I would ask that question. My comp, I just put in Chris Carter because I remember like Chris Carter. I don't know if anyone remembers him, but career only lasted between 2010 and 2017, but he was so good. I think he had 41 home runs one year, either nearly led the league or he did lead the league. And then very shortly after he was out of the league, which just seems like the range of outcomes for De Los Santos. It's if you're going to strike out that much and not walk, you're done. But if you can do anywhere close to what he's doing right now, then Arizona's got a good one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's just destroying the PCL. 23 games, 6 home runs, 326 average, 18 strikeouts to 8 walks. I mean, this is a player, though, that is showing development, right? I mean, we talked about 147 strikeouts in 126 games. That was probably why organizations were like, hey, he's Chris Carter, right? Why should we protect him on our 40 when the following season in 2023, it was 125 strikeouts in 113 games. We saw 22 home runs in 22 and then 20 in 2023. That's not necessarily flashing greatness. I get why they exposed him to the Rule 5. Now, 20 home runs in 61 games with, showing that you kind of are getting your biggest problem taken care of. And what's crazy is he's not that far off from Junior Camanero's age. De Los Santos turns 21 in a couple days here, June 21st. And we expected these numbers out of Junior Caminero had he stayed in the minor leagues, but he's been hurt. And I think the biggest calling card too for De Los Santos is the short sample size in exit velocity, but we have a 92.7 average EV in AAA, about 350 pitches total. That's elite, right? We're seeing that from Vientos at the major league level in years past. So I think it's really interesting. I remember Chris Carter. I think Chris Carter was the projection. I think it's changing, Doc, and that's not a negative thing on any of us here, but I don't know what he is.
Chris Carter with defense is still in the league, or he would have been in the league longer probably. He was just like a pure DH, couldn't play any defense as far as I can tell. So I don't, maybe that's the question here too. I don't know about De Los Santos' defense. If he's going to be a DH only guy, then he has to produce, right?
Yeah. Drew, I have a crazy question for you. Is it at all in the realm of possibility that we get an 80th percentile outcome? So 80% of Junior Camanero's production from De Los Santos.
I think that's conceivable. Yeah.
The numbers just are so interesting. They're interesting because we announce these guys as the next thing, and then you have someone that's doing very similar or better in the next year, and they just don't get the same love. All right, well, that was a good conversation on De Los Santos. We're going to get into some just fun, generalized conversation here with you, Drew. You kind of mentioned as we jumped on the show today, the Tigers fandom, and you've got a number of names in your organization. I put them on the outline, Colt Keith, Kevin McGonigal, Henry Malloy, Jung, Brasino. It's a good organization. That's not even mentioning Max Clark. Doc, I know you bang the drum, and rightfully so. But who are you most excited for in the organization? And do you think this crop can join, or I guess, come up with Torkelson again? That's so weird to say. But do you think this is a winning foundation?
Yeah, I'm going to take Torkelson out of the equation.
Okay.
And we can talk about him for a little bit, but I do, and I think that they're spread out well. I think Riley Green is going to be the real core there. And yeah, looking at the names, I'm really high on Colt Keith, and Jace Young, and probably Josue Braseno. I think those would be the top three, probably in that order out of those. And then Justin Henry Malloy is going to be a solid major league ball player. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but he's going to be that guy out there, probably in a corner outfield position every day. Kevin McGonigal, you know what I just worry about the body type. I mean, how many Altuves are out there? And so I got McGonigal and Jet Williams with the Mets and some other guys who are, and I mean,
he's 5'10". He's not 5'6" or 5'7". He's closer to McGonigal. I believe he's 5'10". Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's a generous listing, but he's closer to 6 foot than he is Jose Altuve by 4 inches from Altuve.
I'm pulling it up. 5. I mean,
5'10". Oh, I stand corrected. Then
so now you're with me. Now you're
totally
all in, baby.
Confused with somebody. I'll own that. I do this for fun. Yeah. So McConnell's having an amazing year right now. So I do think it's a really good core, and I do know the system is better than it was. I think Torkelson came up. They didn't have the coaching in there that they have now. But the other thing I've heard about Torkelson, and I've heard it twice probably on Twitter, but 2 years apart, is Torkelson's not coachable. He came up in 22. Didn't do that well. Like, he struggles each level. He goes up higher. And it does. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. After the 22 season, they said, "Hey, what are you going to work on? What coaches are you going to work with?" He goes, "I know how to hit. I'm just going go out and hit. I know what to do. And came back, had a horrible first half of 23, was hotter than anybody in August and September last year, and then went up, did his own thing, doesn't go to drive line, doesn't work with the Tigers coaches. I don't know if he's got a parent or a high school coach or just goes to the cages himself, and it comes back. And so, and this year, it's probably somebody unofficial, but they're like, word is he's just not a coachable guy. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't want to put my name on that too hard, but I see it. He doesn't lay off certain pitches. And so um, I I think they're gonna look somewhere else for first base. I think Twerk's gonna move on one way or another. They're either just not gonna sign him and let him play it out or see if he can be a throw-in on the trade. And I hate to say, I mean, he's a number one draft pick at the time. Back to the positive. I do think that's a fun core. I love Braseno. I love the way he was hitting the ball in spring training, and he seems to be doing it well, kind of starting off. And Jace Young is just crushing the ball right now. I don't mind the taking time with some guys, but I'd love to see him call up Young and see what he could do.
Is Young now primarily third base? I haven't followed him enough this year. No AFL last year. They tried to make that position his, and then Colt Keith obviously being signed to the extension, having the shoulder issue in the past. Is Young their third of the future?
I think he is, because Keith is actually playing pretty decent second base, and they've got Young slotted in at third base. That's where they're, yeah.
It's interesting that they flopped the two. Like that's I don't see that often. Where it's like take your second, take your third, and we're just going to say okay, changing positions. And later, right? AAA.
Yeah,
that was interesting. So Braseno is a guy that is gotten a lot of traction since the offseason. I haven't actually seen him play at all. I haven't gotten a chance to look at him and take a Twitter breakdown. You really like him, and this is a kid, if I'm correct, that's complex standout. And what do you think the realistic outcome is? Is this a top 10 future prospect, do you think?
Top 10 catcher. I don't know if he's top 10 overall. I don't know whether many catchers deserve to be top 10 overall, but I could see him a top 10 catcher. I could see maybe a top 5 catching prospect in a couple of years.
Yeah,
and I think the Tigers will slow play him. I don't think they'll rush him.
Yeah. And maybe that's the Torkelson replacement if he plays himself positionally out of catcher with the bat. Doc, what do you think? These are a lot of names that we've talked about before. You love McGonigal, who, by the way, I did just watch a little bit of on Twitter. Looks a little small. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's camera angle. I maybe it's just because we literally just talked about it.
5'10's a little short. But that's 1 inch shorter than Heliot Ramos, right? Who's just like mashing the ball. Different body types, right? Can you hear that screaming child? That's great. It's good for audio.
Listen. We're helping the world move forward, Doc.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly. I am a huge fan of the Tigers system. I understand it's been a hard time for Tigers fans, and maybe they don't want to believe or they don't fully believe. I just think so much fun up the middle, shortstop if McGonigal can stay there, and then Clark in the center field. They almost seem like they're very similar characters. They're very similar players in that, both 5'10", 6 foot, and then both kind of chunky and have sneaky strength. Well, Max Clark is a freak, but McGonigal, I did hear coming out of the draft, sneaky pop. Like, you could see a 15 to 20 home run outcome here. His speed is playing really well. The other day, they both had like multi-hit, like 3 and 4 hit games, and each hit a home run. I'm like, this is it, man. This is what's going to happen, huh? They're both just, McGonigal is hitting even better. I think he's got an over 300 BA and over or near 400 OBP. Clark's around the similar kind of thing. He's faster. Max Clark's faster. Max Clark's their guy. I don't have to talk too much about him. I think they're both going to be projects, which is exciting because they're already flashing. Here's the thing: if these guys come in here and they're touted and we know their talent level and they struggle, we'll still be like, okay, we'll just keep tabs on these guys. They're not even doing that, right? Like, we're almost taking it for granted that they're ripping the cover off these baseballs. Jace Young, moving along quickly because there's so many of these Tigers to talk about. I agree. I think actually he could be. I think he just seems like the same guy at the very least as Josh, his brother. They seem like the same guy. They're doing the same things. I've heard, and it seems like maybe Jace has a better OBP opportunity, better approach. That remains to be seen. He hasn't played in the big leagues yet. That'd be cool because that's like a knock. That's one big knock on other than health with Josh, right? So I'm not sure how much that's bad luck. We'll find out. But I think,
Yeah, I think not.
I think Jace Young is really underrated. What do I have him now? I have him all the way up to my top 20. I think out of non-debuted prospects, he's 16th overall, ahead of my boy Brock Wilken. So I think he's really underrated. You should go out and get Jace Young, especially at his current value. The other guys, Brasino's a project. He's 6'4". He's huge. I'm not sure if that's an issue at catcher. That's a lot of crouching, right, for a 6'4" guy. It's not unheard of, but yeah, you just kind of see them usually a bit more squat. But yeah, he's got serious power, which is interesting. The home runs aren't flashing yet. Might be a ground ball issue, but his approach looks great. Malloy's an OBP guy with no defense. I think he'll be a good fill in there. Colt Keith, I'm still high on. He seems like he's quietly getting the job done out there. It's just and Torkelson, I hate to hear that about the work ethic. I hadn't heard that, but I mean, it's not like it's like I don't believe it. It's interesting though, right? So some of these ball players are going to have big egos. They're the jock. They're the guy who was always number one. He was literally the number one overall draft pick. You're the king, right? What is that? What do people treat you like? How do you respond to that? And so Brady Singer was really stubborn. He came in, and he was flashing a few years back, and he refused to add another pitch. I guess out of stubbornness. I don't know if it was trying or whatever, but he just did not incorporate it. And then I remember seeing a quote from him this offseason when he was adding this other four-seamer to it, which really tunnels well with his sinker, I think. That's why he's doing better this year. But he said, I'm tired of sucking. I don't want to play crappy anymore. So it's like that's eventually, hopefully, Torkelson gets to that point. I would imagine and hope that a demotion is a shot to the ego, and maybe that's what it is. And you know what? There could be something to it. Again, reading tea leaves, but I think the reporters called out. They asked Hinch. They said, "Hey, what's up with Torque?" And he didn't vouch for him. He's like, "Yeah, he's more along the lines of he's not playing well, and that's not acceptable." Something along those lines of like he did not stick up for his guy, and that might be a situation, to monitor. I'm excited for him, man. I actually am really excited for the Tigers, and one thing they're doing really well is, hey Matt, you want to lead us in because I want to talk about some pitcher. He's a pitcher for the Tigers. Well, his name's not Scooball.
I wanted to just finish with Torkelson, and I was desperately trying to siphon through Baseball Savant as you both were breaking down this team. And the one thing I have heard is that high fastballs he's having a really big trouble with, and velocity is obviously up through the years. It's up over the velocity he would have saw in college as well as probably the minor leagues. I could see that being a very coachable moment where, you have a big hole in your swing, like a lot of players do when you have this kind of upper top tier elite velocity, and you're going to have to lean on some guys that are going to have to help you change your mechanics or change your approach. If you're not doing that, you're going to struggle. So I think there's, logically speaking, a lot of truth that could be there. And I will have to do a little bit more research and find these numbers because supposedly it's very, very bad against fastballs up in the zone. But leading us in to the pitcher that you are alluding to, Doc, is Reese Olson. Terrible record on the season, but everything else looks fantastic. Drew, I have here that your love for Reese Olson borders on unhealthy. I have to hear what you say about Reese Olson.
I started following him when he's in Double-A, and he was like behind the big three, Scooble, Mize, and Manning, and would this guy ever get there? And the ratios were awesome. The strikeouts were not there, but the ratios were awesome. And he was kind of fun to watch the stats come through. And then he gets up in the show. He is so much fun to watch. He doesn't have an overpowering fastball, but he's got a good fastball. He's got incredible command. Like he's all over the corner, just inside or outside the strike zone. He's actually getting more strikeouts in the majors than I would have predicted that he would have gotten. Last year, the bullpen would let him down. I know it happened in a quality start league, and he would throw like 6 2/3 and come in, and somebody would come in and like give up 2 runs of guys he left on base. So, he'd click over and we can get the quality start and we get the win. This year, I cannot believe the lack of run support. I mean, I know the Tigers don't score for anybody, but they don't score for him at all. Like he's losing games 1-0. But what I love, the 2 games I watch the Tigers every week, that are Skubal and Olsen starts. The other ones, frankly, it depends who else is playing because there's so many great teams and great players out there. I don't want to lock on, but I will not miss a Reese Olsen start just because he's so crafty out there. His so calm. No matter what happens, he's got the same look in his face. It's a little bit of a determination. A little bit looks like he's a 14-year-old kid out there with the kind of the baby face. Doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. But it just he reminds you guys won't get. He reminds me of Frank Tanana at the end of his career. Frank Tanana came up with Nolan Ryan, and they both would get 300 strikeouts a season. He blew his shoulder. Tanana did. Came back as a soft pitch guy. Ended his career with the Tigers, and it was just everything was slow curves, but it just had batters fooled. And Olsen just fools batters, fools hitters. And if you really like watching an artist pitch, you'd like Reese Olsen, and that's where that's coming from. I could keep talking about him, but that's basically the story. Yeah.
Do you think Olsen ends up being the best current major league starting pitcher that they have over Maya's? And I apologize. I would imagine Manning's still with the big league club if he's not in AAA. Do you think he actually surpassed this crop and is the number one moving forward after Skubal?
Okay. Well, yeah. After
I was going to say, I was like, there is this other guy.
I think he's out of the equation though, right?
Yes.
Like, is that fair to say that he shouldn't be in this bag?
I think it's going to be him and Mize. I think Mize is still getting his feet under him after all the injuries, but I see the confidence kind of growing there. But right now he's ahead of those two, and I think he'll stay ahead of Manning. Like I'd like Manning to be better, but he's he is what he is, and I think he'll be that AAA or fifth kind of starter slot for him. It's gonna be interesting to see if and when the Tigers, if they sell, if anybody who's interested in Flaherty or Maeda, what they do with the rotation, who they bring up, and everything. But I think Olsen's showing it because I think the results are there. I think his ERA and his WHIP are so low, and you watch him, you can see why. He's not lucking into these ratios. He's just got a whole battle. He gets in a run support, and so that's why the record is like 1 in 15 or whatever it is.
Yeah, the run support. We remember that with DeGrom, and I often like to toss out Ben Sheets' name. It's hard to watch these guys go out and pitch 6-7 innings and get no runs as they hold an opponent to one.
My turn.
It will be your turn. Frank Tanana. This is incredible. When we're done, go look at Frank Tanana. What an awesome throw out there, Drew. All right, Doc, go ahead. Torch is yours.
Yeah. So Reese Olsen, man, me and Drew, like we have some bro moments here. We have some guys, some similar guys are after. I went to I will say, going up through, I go through Detroit sometimes to go to Canada to see my family, and I did go to a game. So whenever I go to a stadium, I appreciate what they offer a little bit more so far, and in all of them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think Reese Olsen, pretty much Drew said a lot of it, in terms of. I almost lean away from the fireballers. Skeens is a fun unicorn, but while there's something to be said for velo, the stats back it up. It's effective, but a guy who it's the classic line. I like a pitcher, not a thrower, right? And this guy is certainly no thrower. He's got a starter's pitch mix. I always emphasize that it's not just it's so important to have an effective pitch mix to keep hitters off balance and guessing and being able to command those pitches. And goodness, he was starting off the year so strong, and he actually flashed last year. That's when I was in early. At the end of last year, he really showed some interesting promise. And this year just railed off quality start after quality start that was not resulting in wins, as Drew said. But, he was crushing it. And then he had this 3-game stretch just now, right, where he was not looking so sharp. He was getting lit up. And so, it's funny. Whenever a player does that kind of dance, you can hop into the Yahoo comment section under their profile, and all of a sudden it looks like it's like an NFL comment section. There's just death threat, knock. NFL comment section, you will see death threats, but it was like next best thing. They were hating this Olsen guy, and I'm like, come on, man. And so it was. What were you gonna say, Drew?
I said, wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. No, it's greasy. Yeah, I do some Yahoo, but then of course he does great. They love him. But So I saw this, right, and I'm like, I believe in Olsen. So I pride started him. You know, I was like I was like, okay, I believe in Olsen here. He's not doing 4 in a row. I don't care if it's that the Braves were resurgent. They're red hot right now, and he went in there and shut them down. He struck out the side to end his 6th inning, his last inning, and that included Ozuna and Olsen. Olsen, he got on this beautiful curveball. You saw that one, right, Drew? It was it was nice just a couple days ago, and it just kind of came in, right into the bottom corner away from Olsen. And I believe he swung through it too. Yeah, it was not looking. So it was just nice. And I heard the announcers mentioning this, and I just verified it on Savant. He doesn't throw the curveball that much, but they were remarking that, he's locating this. He's putting it wherever he wants. And I think as the start went on, he started noticing that Mr. Olsen did. And it's nice to see. Yeah, got a baby face. It's interesting. He's got these twiggy arms. I wonder what could happen if you put a little bit of muscle on, man. And I'm serious, right? He's already sitting at like 94, 95. That's not terrible. You can live there. But what if it goes up naturally, a tick? That'd be very interesting.
Right.
That's the most anyone's ever talked about Reese Olsen on any podcast. I think we did about 10 minutes straight. You're muted there, Matt.
No, I'm not. I was looking into Reese Olsen this week, and I don't remember exactly what Milwaukee traded him for. They traded him to the Tigers. And that definitely is something that, stings a little bit now. We hate to see any organization that we root for give up a guy, but Reese Olsen is, as you guys both talked about, doing very well. And maybe if he puts on that extra velo, Doc, I would hope that all it does is kind of maintain him or keep him in the mid 90s. I'm in agreement with you at this point. I'm searching for players that are not throwing 98, 99 because it's just so dangerous long term. Guys, we did it. We actually made it through an entire outline. I'm shocked. We missed talking about Garrett Cole, but who cares? It's Garrett Cole. There's not much needs to be said there. Drew, you might be the good luck charm. It's pretty great.
Hey. Well, I hope so. Thanks for having me. This is a great time. Really enjoyed it.
Is there anything you have coming up, through your podcast or anything else that you're a part of that you kind of wanted to steer the listening audience towards?
As part of one of the subsets that we do with our podcast is we have what we call the JTR 30. Chris and I come up with the most overlooked prospect on each major league organization. So we've got a monthly update for that coming up. We've recorded it the other night. I'm going to edit it and get it out this weekend coming up. So encourage people to look for that. And then there's a link in there to the article where we list all 30 plus a graph of who we've moved off, either because they've been seen or nothing to see here kind of thing. So we're excited about that project. And later this month, the Dynasty Guru is going to start doing our mid-year updates on our Dynasty ranking for everybody by position. So we've got about 10 or 12 writers and rankers who come up with their competent rankings. So it's not just, 1 or 2 people with their preference. So we're excited about that. Look for that to start coming out in mid-July. And then, gearing up for next year's ranking season.
The 30 players, one per organization that is underrated, is that found on the Dynasty Guru site?
Yeah, if you go to the Dynasty Guru site, any of the JTR 30 articles about it, we have the full graph attached to each article.
Awesome. Yeah, you got me excited when you said that. I'm absolutely going to be checking that out because it's what we're here for, right? You said it earlier. We do this because we like this. And there isn't anything better for me personally, someone that enjoys the industry, than being like, I don't know this guy. Let me find out more about him, because that's kind of the beauty in what we do. Yeah. But Drew, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure. And your knowledge on the Tigers is enjoyable, and we're going to hopefully have you on more throughout the next couple of years.
Oh, I look forward to it, Matt. Thank you very much. And Doc, same to you. And every Wednesday, I'm working at home in the morning and throw on the YouTube and have you guys playing in the background, and love it. Love listening to you guys every week.
Yes. Thank you so much, Drew. Doc, anything else for us today?
Your Huckleberry.
We will see you guys next week.